Good evening. This is Pastor Mark. Hope you've been keeping up with the book, Eats with Sinners, and keeping up with the chapters. We're in chapter 7 this evening, where it speaks about resolve. Starting in Luke in chapter 9, verse 53, "But the people did not receive him, because his face was set toward Jerusalem." Now, Pastor Aaron gives us some background on this verse. A lot of times the Jews would use Samaria if they even chose to go through there because the Samaritans disliked them so much, that they would use Samaria as a shortcut to get to Jerusalem, to the temple. And the Samaritans didn't care for their country being used as a shortcut. Just as Jesus was resolved when it talks about his face being set toward Jerusalem. Now, that's being resolved in a way that we probably don't understand. When we set our face toward a direction, we're determined to go somewhere. Now, it wasn't talking about him just facing Jerusalem. What it meant was he was resolved to go there no matter what. He had a clear goal in mind. Now, as he was heading for Jerusalem, his goal was twofold: to die for the sins of humankind, and then go to heaven to prepare a place for all those who put their faith in him. Everyone has a goal of some kind. To reach this goal takes discipline and sacrifice, no matter what it is. What are your goals? What goals have you established for yourself, no matter what age you are? Have you established a goal to lose weight, to get in better health, to spend more time with your family? Well, we certainly have spent more time with our families, haven't we? With the stay in shelter and quarantine and the things we're doing now because of the pandemic. But the goals I'm talking about are goals that you have for your own personal life. Not just for your health, not just about your weight, your blood pressure. What goals do you have to improve your life? And not just to improve it for yourself, but also the lives of others. Nothing would keep us from reaching lost people if we are resolved, as Jesus was, to reach them. How resolved are we? Are we like Christ when he was in Jerusalem, knowing what he was facing, and didn't turn around and leave? So we know that on his way to Jerusalem, he knew what was about to happen, and he went anyway. It would be like you heading toward Italy, where one of the worst COVID-19 virus infections is located in the world, and going anyway, knowing what you might face, maybe even death. So the question I have for you is, what's your Jerusalem? I hope you make it your goal to reach as many people as you can for Jesus. That should be your resolve, to eat with as many sinners as possible. But I also want you to understand that it's going to take resolve on your part to reach the goal. Many people have great intentions. For example, when people want to lose weight, they'll list things out, they'll make menus, they'll look at all kind of diets, but then don't really seem to finish it out or really get started. They like the idea of losing weight and planning, but somehow they couldn't stick with that resolve. And it's not just weight, that's just one of the many goals that people have. So I'm asking you tonight, when it comes to your spiritual walk with Christ, what's your resolve? What's your Jerusalem? Is it your annoying neighbor that thinks you're poisoning his dog? Is it a family member that you've been dealing with for quite a while? Is it a worker that's only working 3 cubicles away, or the one that's taking your lunch from the refrigerator, even though you got your name labeled all over it? Is it the one that's receiving divorce papers from her husband? So we have a lot of Jerusalems out there. What is our resolution? What are we resolving to do? Turning to Jerusalem will cost you something. And that shouldn't surprise you. It cost Jesus everything. Turning to your Jerusalem will certainly cost you something, and it shouldn't come at any surprise. Pastor Aaron mentions numerous people who did not quit when it got tough. If they have failed in the past, they kept on moving. I would say they kept moving toward Jerusalem. Nothing could keep them from their resolve. Now let me ask you, what's keeping you from yours? It's amazing that we can have a lot of goals in life, and we'll go after some things, and whether it be about material gain or about our jobs, whatever it might be. But when it comes to our relationship with Christ, when it comes to reaching others for Him, some reason people don't have the resolve they need to see this through. They don't have spiritual goals. They just have personal ones for themselves. So if nothing could keep these people that Pastor Aaron listed in that chapter from their resolve, the question is, what's keeping you from yours? On page 107, he says, we must have a relentless desire to reach our goal. Relentless, that means constant, unending, without waxing and waning. It's continuous. So where's your desire? If you have a goal, usually you'll have a desire to see it through. The problem is many of us will have a goal, but we lack the proper desire. And maybe that's because of some of the things that he mentions in the following page, facing challenges from outsiders. We must face challenges like Jesus did when he sent messengers into Samaria for lodging. Although the relationship between the Jews and the Samaritans were not good, as least to say, it did not keep Jesus from moving toward Jerusalem. So he had to face outsiders. But sometimes we also face challenges from the inside. We must not be surprised when we face challenges from insiders, because that will happen too. I guarantee that you're going to face people, even maybe your own spouse or own family. If you tell them that you're going on a mission trip, or that you're going to invite somebody over that you met today, and you invited them to lunch or you invited them to dinner. In Luke chapter 9, verse 54, it says, and when his disciples, James and John, saw it, they said, Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and consume them? Now they're talking about the Samaritans who would not give them lodging in their country. And it's very interesting that the disciples, that was their first reaction, is to not just burn their town or burn people, but to consume them. This shows you the attitude they still had toward the Samaritans. But in the usual style of Jesus and the love that he has for us, in Luke chapter 9, verse 55, but he turned and rebuked them, and rightfully so. And I wonder if Jesus was here right now with us, would he be rebuking us in our attitude about the lost? But in verse 56, he says, and they went on to another village. These disciples hadn't been listening to Jesus earlier when he said in Luke 6:27, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. So I ask you, what is keeping you from pressing on to the goals that you've established, the goals the church has established? And we talk about this all the time. To reach the lost for Christ, to disciple them, and to minister to our community. It's not very complicated. Some people have complicated goals, like I want to learn Chinese in 3 months, or Mandarin. I want to learn calculus in 2 months. That can get pretty complicated. But what does it take to simply invite someone to sit down with you one day and say, you know, I just met you, don't know you very well, but I've got a story to tell you. If you have time, can you sit down and have lunch with me? Or can I call you later? Or where do you worship? If you don't have anywhere to worship, why don't you attend church with me on Sunday? That is pressing on. And I pray and hope that every one of you are resolved to do just that, to reach the lost for Christ. Now, if you're watching the news about the pandemic, and I'm sure you are, you're seeing that we're losing a lot of lives in a very short amount of time, especially in the epicenters like New York. And I just want to encourage you that, even though these numbers seem high, all of us here on earth are going to die of something. And we don't get to choose what it is. We don't get to choose the date. In Job, he says that God has allotted our days and they shall not be exceeded. So I don't want you worrying about what's going on with the coronavirus, worrying about whether or not there's enough toilet paper when you go to the grocery store. Really, what I want you to be concerned about when you hear about the thousands that are dying, the thousands that have already passed away, did you ask the question, I wonder if they knew Jesus? Probably some of you were wondering, I wonder where they got the disease from. I wonder who they came in contact with. Did they follow those rules? Did they quarantine like they should have? We'll have a lot of questions. But the main one, did they know their Lord? I hope that no one that we know will ever have to face the COVID-19 virus that may even take their lives. But especially for someone that you might know, that you've worked with or in your family, or that changes the oil in your car or works on your car or on your house, whatever it might be, and you never introduced Christ to them because you did not have a resolve to reach out and tell them your story about the wondrous love that God has for all of us and the sacrifice that He made for our redemption. So please ask yourself the question, what is keeping you from pressing on? What is keeping you from being resolved to eat with sinners, to develop relationships with other people that, other than those that go to church, those who you associate with the most, whether in your Sunday school class or whether a fellow deacon, whatever it might be? When's the last time before this pandemic you actually spoke to a stranger? And not just spoke, but maybe even trying to start a conversation with them that you were hoping would lead to you telling your story, the reason for the hope that is within you. I thank you all for watching this video. I know it's been very difficult to watch videos when we've been meeting in person. I miss every one of you. I miss our time of worship. I miss our time of coming together. And I know you do too. Continue to pray for one another. Be patient through this season. God will see us through. I love you. I'm praying for every one of you. God bless you.